So good morning. Today is the 14th day of Iyar, which is also the 5th of May. It's Pesach Sheni, the second opportunity to bring the Paschal Lamb. Even someone who on purpose didn't bring it has a second chance, even if they they weren't able to do it. One of the main differences is that the second Pesach is not celebrated without chametz, meaning that it's a completely different type of holiday. It's a single day just to bring the sacrifice, and with the matzah that one eats with the Paschal lamb, we can also eat bread. But we want to talk today about the sixth portion of Parashat Emor. And the sixth portion wraps up the discussion of the holidays, of the special days of the year. And the holidays end with Sukkot. Sukkot and the 8th day of Sukkot, which is known as a tzeret. A tzeret literally means a stop, but it also means something that collects within it, or it's one of those interesting verbs in Hebrew that can be both to collect and to administer, and to give out, and to spread out also. In either case, the Sukkot ends the entire cycle of the year. We don't usually think of it that way because we tend to think that Sukkot is in the beginning of the year. But one of the interesting topics to explore one time, we don't have time for it today, is that actually the beginning of the year is obviously when we start the Torah cycle. And the Torah cycle started right after Sukkot. We read Bereshit and the Shabbat right after Sukkot ends, right after Shmini Atzeret. So actually, even though we say that the first day of the year is Rosh Hashanah, is the first day of Tishrei, in actuality, there is a lot to be said about the fact that the year doesn't really begin until after Sukkot. And then we have the real beginning of the year and the reading of Parashat Bereshit and so on. But what I want to talk about today is a very important thing, a very important connection between the days that we're in right now, Sfirat HaOmer, and Sukkot. Sfirat HaOmer began and it ends with an act of waving, taking a sacrifice and waving it in the air. Ve'enif HaKohen et HaOmer. That the priest on the second day of Pesach takes the Omer offering, which is two breads made out of barley, which is the food of animals, and it's waved up, it's lifted up. On Sukkot we do something very similar. We take the four species, Arbat Aminim, the Lulav, Etrog, Hadas, and Arava, and we bind them together, and we lift them up and we wave them in all six directions, right, left, front and back, up and down. What is the idea of this waving, of lifting something up and waving it? So this is actually, as next week we're going to be commemorating Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of the Omer, which is also the day on which traditionally is the day of passing of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, who was the master of the Zohar, the master of the hidden tradition, of the concealed tradition. And one might ask, what is the great innovation of the Zohar? What was so special about what it taught? Why do we see it as a change, as a complete, let's call it innovation in Torah thought? So we can point at many things, but I think that the one that is most pertinent to us is a statement of the Zohar that when there is an awakening from below, there is an awakening from above. Be'itaruta diltata, itaruta dil'ela. Itaruta diltata means an awakening below, means that we awaken and we rise up, and that causes an awakening above. In Sfirat HaOmer, the awakening below starts with the waving of this Omer offering, and then we go into 49 days of uplifting our animal soul. Again, the Omer offering was made out of barley, which is the food of animals. On Sukkot, we take the produce from the field and we lift it up to Hashem. And we lift it up with the lulav and etrog. These are basically the produce that we've just harvested from the fields. They represent according to the sages, there's a lot to be discussed about it, how they represent all the different types of plant life. What does it mean that a person is awakened from below? What does that even mean? It's the concept that later in Kabbalah is called Or Choser, reflected light. Reflected light means that I recognize that Hashem is shining down upon me many, many things. Reflected light means that it causes me to awaken and return. Reflected light means that I'm not transparent. The light doesn't just go through me. I don't just take it for granted that what I've received is what needs to be. Rashbi himself describes when he went to Rome. He was in Rome and he saw Rome, and he said when he was there, Im kach le'osei retzono al achat v'kama le'ovrei retzono al achat v'kama le'osei retzono. If this is what God gave to those who pass over His will, all the more so what He will grant to those who do His will. What does it mean that they pass over His will? So the Alter Rebbe explains they pass over His will means that they take it for granted. They just assume that this sustenance, this flow of goodness, the bounty that we have, the produce that we have, the life that we have, they take it for granted. And it doesn't move them. It doesn't cause them to be moved and to return in a state of excitement. Look at what look at what you've given me. That's what it means to awaken below. To awaken below means that things don't just pass through me. God's will doesn't just pass through me, but it stops with me. And it stops because I'm a vessel to contain it, and I say, this is not something I can just pass over. This is something that has significance. I have to return the favor. Not necessarily that I can give God anything, but I can't remain oblivious to it. I can't remain indifferent to it. I can't just say, oh, this is how things are supposed to be. And so Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he innovated this idea that when we awaken from below, it is in turn causes an awakening from above, another awakening. In other words, when I see that what I give to others is meaningful to them, when I see that this is something that has meaning, that they understand what they've received, it causes me to want to give more. It causes me to awaken myself and say, if there's somebody on the other side who's accepting and is acknowledging, and is not just that, but is excited by what I've given them, then I want to give them more. That's what's called that the awakening from below causes an awakening from above. But it starts with the fact that I'm not indifferent, that I don't just let life pass through me somehow, taking it for granted that this is what needs to be, but rather everything moves me. I'll say in just one short sentence how one can summarize all of Jewish history. A lot of times Judaism is described as not ever having innovated anything. I don't have a problem with that. You can argue history in different ways. Did the Jews actually innovate anything or not? But what I can say that for certain is true, and no one else has done, that Jews have been moved by history. And our movement by history is because we are a returning light. We are excited by the fact that God has us in the world. And because of that, if we hear music, we don't just say, oh, what a beautiful gift that God gave the world. We say, what a beautiful gift. Let's see how we can elevate it. Let's see how we can make it higher. Let's see how we can make it more godly. That in one sentence is the essence of Judaism. Whatever I'm given, I take to a higher level. I take it to a higher level. I wave it on top. I bring it back up, causing a greater effluence even from above, because I'm not indifferent to the gifts, to the wonderful sustenance that God gives me in life. Shabbat Shalom.
So, thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom.